Hey y'all, what is up? It's your girl, Dr. Nina, and I'm excited to be here today because I get to share another leg of my journey. These talks have been so emotional, but first, if you have never been here before, again, my name is Dr. Nina, and I share a lot about lifestyle, fitness, healthcare, skincare, body care, everything in between. And your girl got a lot of, credentials behind her to help with these discussions. But I really do enjoy sharing my life, my world. And the reason being is because I know there's so many people that need, or quietly need, that friend next door that knows a lot about a lot, but also is there to be transparent about their journey so that others might accomplish what it is they need and stay motivated along the way, even when you don't feel like you have the tools to do so. Today's story and talk is no different. And for many of you that have followed my journey, you know that recently my husband and I announced that I am pregnant. We are pregnant, and we are 21 weeks, so we're over halfway, and we will be meeting our new little human very soon. And so I thought it was important to share with you not only triumphs, right? Over here, we don't just do the cute stuff. We talk about the things that don't necessarily get discussed because of, people being shamed. And baby, I ain't shamed. That's something I ain't. But also because sometimes we feel alone and we don't feel like others can relate. But today is about my emotional TTC journey, or trying to conceive journey, as well as IVF, which stands for in vitro fertilization, and what I went through with that process. Now, what you should know ahead of time is we only got through half the process and then we conceived naturally. So I'm going to talk about that today. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that really uplifted me and my husband during this process, how we got through it positively, and just some pointers for younger and more mature audience members, male and female, that are looking to continue on their journey, or maybe just inquisitive about what's to come in their future. Now, let me say this. I love the engagement, baby. Do not hold back. I know some of y'all told me it took you 10 years to comment on one of my videos. We don't want that today. Go ahead and let me know if you have some questions, some comments, share your own journey. I love reading those comments, and I love them because they help me to direct the rest of my content to bring you what you want to see and answer the questions that you have. So also, I'll be doing a Q&A. So if you have any questions about my pregnancy and things I've been experiencing, please go ahead, type them down below. I will be considering a lot of those questions. I've already curated about 50 of them from Instagram. Thank y'all for including them. So if you're not following me on Instagram, make sure you are, because I do ask for your questions. But without further ado, let's get into this video. Before we get started and jump right in, I want to tell y'all this is a story of resilience, hope, love, and joy. This is my very own transparent story because I know many times people don't always feel like they have other people along the way on their path. And share this story with others that might be on their trying to conceive journey, no matter what their ultimate goal is, no matter the way that they choose to get there, making sure that they know that this is motivation and inspiration for them to keep pushing forth. No matter what the battle is, it can be done. If I can do it, others can do it. And I do believe that through prayer, through meditation, through life, through having a good circle, through having other supports, that's the way to get there. So please make sure that you share this video with others that are trying to conceive, or maybe going through that IVF journey or other journeys that are adding to their fertility or their infertility story. I want to normalize it. Now let's start from the beginning. This is a mild way of answering a question that I get often. A lot of people ask me my age all the time, and I've never shied away from sharing it because your girl done did a lot with them. Yes, honey. Yes, she did. Very proud. And 39. I will be 40 in about a month, and I am so grateful to have lived this life fully, and a life that I can fully add to my child and be a great and wise vessel to them, and be in a place where I am comfortable, and not only comfortable but happy with where I've grown to be, so that I can add that to someone else's life as well as my husband's, right? So my husband and I met each other in 2018. September of 2018. We got engaged in 2020, November of 2020, and we got married December 19th of 2021. Now, strangely enough, our baby is due in December of 2023. God has a sense of humor. But with that said, before that, many might say, well, why did you wait? Because I had so many people that were like, I thought you were married already. And you know, those type of, no, I didn't think so. Okay. I never said it, so I wasn't. But I will say this, it was all for a purpose. I spent my years living. Do you hear me? I spent my teens, my 20s, my 30s becoming worldly, going to school. I was in school for 10 years straight, got postdoc, did my board exams, but I wasn't just in school, baby. I was learning about the world. I had relationships that have begun, some that ended. I had wonderful and still have wonderful friendships, built a solid circle, traveled, lived in 4 different states. Honey, I done lived, okay? And so my baby will very much benefit from that, and so has my husband. So I say that because we did meet later in life, and it was for the perfect reason. I couldn't have been more wise. I couldn't have been in a better place. And so with that said, in terms of wanting to conceive, I was not too nervous about conceiving because I've kept myself very healthy. I had been very much in tune with age and understanding those things. But I will say that when we got married, we weren't exactly trying. We waited until, and I mentioned this, me and my husband mentioned this in a video, the summer of 2022. And because it hadn't happened yet after we had gotten married, just off of not trying, okay? So I wanted to become more serious because I didn't want to wait too long. And so IVF was pursued after going through multiple things. Excuse me. So what do I want to say about the things we had to go through? So I first chose an amazing doctor. If y'all want to know more about that, let me know down below. I will share in another video. But I chose an amazing doctor after doing research. And I had decided through my current OBGYN and family practitioner that this was probably the best idea for me to ease my own mind and my thoughts of maybe, you know, there could be problems with conception. I had never had any reproductive issues. However, I had been on birth control in the past since I was younger, like late teens. And I did not take that birth control out until before I got married. So I wanted to make sure, you know, that all the systems was correct. Now, mind you, your girl don't miss a doctor's appointment. So we know the systems didn't have no illnesses and issues with that probably would have caused reproductive issues other than age. So when I went in to the fertility specialist, because that's what you usually start with when it comes to IVF, there is someone that specializes in fertility and in infertility. To my surprise, because I really didn't know much about that process in particular other than my research, there were lots of tests I had to go through. So of course, they're looking at things like your regular well-being, your weight, your blood pressure, your, you know, sugar levels, your thyroid. They want to know more about your liver functions, your levels of vitamins, especially vitamin D and B vitamins. They also want to look at the physical characteristics of your body, right? The biological characteristics. So things like, are your fallopian tubes open? Okay. Do you have tumors? Do you have cysts? Do you have PCOS? All of those things are monitored and looked at before. So you do have to, for most great practitioners, you have to go through a gamut of tests. You have to go through so much. So some of the things that I'll let you know from jump that I had to go through is when I first went in, the first things they started with was taking multiple vials of blood. Now, mind you, that was after sitting with the doctor. My doctor was so amazing. She is amazing. And we sat with her and we talked about our family planning goals and my age and what we could expect. But from that, she had to look at my blood levels and also my husband's levels because, honey, fertility is not all on the woman. Let me make this clear. Fertility is also on the man. If there's something going on with the sperm, which is still not an issue, and what we have not been taught is as a man gets older as well, there could be issues with their sperm count. There could be issues with their body, and even younger men have issues with their sperm counts. So these are things that you have to consider. So when we sat with her, she told us all the tests, and you know, they started off by taking I feel like they took my whole body of blood, okay, honey? I was sitting there for a while with vials of blood getting taken. Mind you, I'm no novice to getting blood taken because I get blood tested every year for everything, but it just did seem like a lot. What they were looking at is your hormones, your AMH, your FSH, so your body's ability to have these eggs. What is your egg count? Because you know, we're blessed with the same eggs from the time we are born. And so as a woman, they want to know where your egg count is and what is the quality of those eggs, okay? How often are you ovulating? They wanted to know all of that. And then they also wanted to see all those blood markers that I told you about. What they came back with for me was everything was absolutely normal. What they came back with for my husband, everything was absolutely normal. So I will say I cannot relate completely to having a lot of barriers physically to conception, because we were in an ideal position. Even though our ages were a bit older, we still had a pretty good egg count. In fact, I heard I was on the higher end, pretty good egg count. Egg quality was pretty good, and lots of other things. I even went through the HSG test, which is a test where it ain't comfortable, I tell y'all that. But the test is where they literally put a balloon of dye into go through your cervix to your uterus, release the dye to see if it goes through the fallopian tubes. If it does come through the fallopian tubes, we know that they are open and not blocked, because sometimes people find out that their fallopian tubes are blocked. I went through that. All of that was fine, okay? As we continued on, she continued blood monitoring, looking at other things that could have been an issue. My thyroid was fine. All of that, you know, I was within pretty much ideal weight and all of those things. The issue was I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility. Hearing that diagnosis, I cried, because I really was like, wow, like, what is unexplained? What is happening? And what I found was, you know, it just means we don't know why it hasn't happened. There's no real reason. There's no physical reason. They couldn't say there was a blockage. They couldn't say that there was a tumor. They couldn't say there was a cyst. There was nothing. Okay. So sometimes that's even more of a difficult space to be in, y'all. I tell you, because I was like, okay, so I'm healthy. My husband is healthy. His sperm count is good. Everything is good. So why hasn't it happened? And I tell y'all, divine timing, God's timing is everything. And I continue to learn that through the course of my life. Everything I've been through has taken time. And this was no different. Whew. So with that said, I took it just like I take a lot of stuff, because a lot of people out there think that my life is just so perfect. Baby, I done heard a lot of bad news, but I done came through it every time, and that's what makes me different. Resilience, endurance, perseverance. My line name in Alpha Kappa Alpha is Miss Perseverance. My ship name is SS Endurance, last of it. Well, we'll get into that another time. But anyway, so I am one who can take it and let it be, but figure out a way, okay? So upon that notice, that diagnosis came in November or December of 2022. And at that time, the doctor said that we shouldn't feel forced or pushed into IVF, that there were other options for us, like an IUI or other ways of trying to conceive. Me being the scientific buff who also believes in God, I said, you know, God blesses the hands of the practitioners that do what they do. So let's roll with the most aggressive treatment. Now, some of y'all might be saying, how much is that most aggressive treatment? IVF ain't cheap. It is not cheap. So I will say this, even me being, when I say healthy, the more healthy end of the spectrum, okay? Meaning that there was not an increased dosage. It was a pretty normal dosage of the medications that I had to be on. And I'll tell you more about that. Even though I didn't have any additional procedures or anything of that sort other than the IVF itself. So for the whole process, which you pretty much usually kind of pay up front, we had to plan for all of the medications that you have to inject into yourself for a couple weeks, doctor's appointments that happen every other day, okay? Not only that, you have to have bloods and labs taken through the process because they do have to monitor your hormones. They have to monitor your egg counts. I mean, just everything, how things are going, and they have to do, transvaginal ultrasounds. Okay. So they have to do all of this like every other day, y'all. And then you're also going to end up doing an egg retrieval where they remove all of these said eggs that have grown more fiercely over these past few weeks from your body so that those can be teamed up with the sperm of your partner. That's why they're called test tube babies. And that was the old name for IVF, right? And so after that process, there's a storage process of those eggs, of those embryos that you produce or perhaps could produce, which was not the case for us, but we'll talk about that. And then from there, you go through where those said embryos or tested embryos, because you can also pay for, which we did, pay for the testing of those, the genetic testing of those embryos so that before they are placed within your body, you know what's going on with those embryos. So we pay for that testing and we pay for that storage, and also you have a finalized process of, making sure that you go through with having those embryos implanted into the body, or hopefully implanted into the body. That's the best way I can put it. From there, you usually see if you've made it to the point of pregnancy about 2 weeks later, and then you continue on with monitoring with your doctor. So that's why the process is so steep in cost. It's not just you get some eggs, you put them, it's a process, okay? IVF takes a while, and not a lot of people know that, okay? So I learned that through this process. So I'll be transparent. Altogether, between medications and the process, that we didn't make it all the way through. So I'll say that it was about a total of $22,000, okay? 22 to 23,000 probably when you start adding up all the costs, the doctor's visits, all types of things. Some people's insurance will pay for parts of the process and all of the process. In fact, I believe right after my place of work changed their process to where they paid for some of those processes. But in our case, we had gone ahead and sacrificed that, and we knew that that was fine. And that's a part of being grown, right? That's a part of being grown, wise, and paid, okay? So we were okay. We realized, though, that's not everybody's situation, and that's why there are other options that the doctor can offer you. And we had a wonderful doctor who offered us all those options. We decided we wanted to go more aggressive. That was on us, okay? So I want to make that very clear. So now let's talk about our process, okay? So because we had not achieved conception yet, and it had been a year past our marriage date, we did not start actively trying to get pregnant until, like I said, the summer of 2022, after being married for about 8 months or so. So we decided that February of 2023, this February, that we would move forward with IVF. This entailed a lot. If you are nervous about injecting yourself with anything, you better get ready, okay? Because it does take that, and I'm not going to scare you. My particular clinic took me through training. Sean came to those trainings of how to inject yourself with the medications, with the hormones, with the items to help to produce the eggs necessary, or hopefully the quality eggs necessary to go through the process. I had friends that had gone through this process before successfully and unsuccessfully. And so I had already heard a lot of the ins and the outs. So I do suggest that you ask people. But if you have a wonderful doctor, they're going to make sure you're educated on it anyway. So my nurses made sure they took me through these courses. I learned how to make sure that I knew how to inject myself, because it might be wonderful and easy for people to go ahead and stick a needle in somebody else. But yourself, woo, that's a whole new level, okay? That's a whole new level. And I ain't no punk, you know what I'm saying? I ain't no punk, but you know, think about it. If you're taking 2 to 3 shots a day, for me, I think I got up to 3 shots a day. And it was a mental thing. You know, you get over the pain, but then you get tired of doing it, okay? So I will say it was 2 to 3 injections per day for about 3 weeks. Now, mind you, the other hard part about that is you're going to the doctor every other day for these ultrasounds, and they are transvaginal. So they are going up and they are looking physically at those ovaries and the eggs that are being produced. And the doctor is looking at the quality of things, how things are growing, and when you will have your mini surgery, if you will, of egg retrieval. With that happening, it got a little tiresome. And I'm not far from my doctor's office. I'm like 20 minutes, so it wasn't bad. But every other day going, it was just kind of that mental piece of it. And let's also say that through the process, for me, some of the symptoms I incurred was feeling bloated, feeling uncomfortable. By getting towards the end of it, your body starts to feel full, because think about it. You're so used to releasing the egg, having a menstrual cycle, that being gone, you know, all of that. Everything is staying in there, right? So those eggs are building up, and they're determining when is the proper time to extract said eggs, or to remove said eggs, and to retrieve said eggs. So that was difficult. I was uncomfortable. There were times that I was recording. Y'all didn't know what was going on. Yeah, girl, I got that poker face. You know what I'm saying? So I was recording. I was uncomfortable. It makes you tired. It's not all bad. I'm not going to sit here and like badmouth it. I am one of those people that has a high tolerance for pain, but the discomfort was there, okay? Now, my husband was amazing. He was there to cheer me on for like every injection. I think he only missed one because he was out of town. But he was there for every one of the injections for all 3 weeks. He went to a lot of my doctor's appointments with me. I had a support team, and Bella, oh y'all, what was hard was when she saw me inject myself one time as a dog, and she cried. Y'all can ask Sean. She cried when she saw me injecting myself. Something about it for her was like, oh, what is she doing? And she didn't like it. She cried. So that made me emotional, but I knew I was doing this for the greater good. So again, what happened to me? We got to the egg retrieval. It went perfectly fine. You're put under anesthesia, and it's only for a short period of time while your fertility specialist goes in and removes those mature eggs and harvest them. So the whole idea is that those are going to be taken back by the person who, and my doctor is also endocrinologist. They take those back, and then they meet those with your husband's fresh sperm within a test tube. Well, not a test tube, like a petri dish, really. And they see if they're able to fertilize. Well, for us, I think we had a total of 7 mature eggs because she didn't want to keep me prolonged on the medication. Some people go longer and they have way more eggs. Like I've heard people who having like 40 eggs. Woo, Lord. I've had friends that have had lots of eggs. But does this mean that all those eggs fertilize, or that all those eggs are having high quality? No. That's why you hear that some people only end up with like one embryo. Okay. So I want to explain that just because you do have lots of eggs retrieved, it does not mean that all those eggs are quality or will be able to meet with the sperm and produce a viable embryo. So you're getting multiple hurdles. For me, we ended up with, I want to say, all of the eggs successfully fertilized. They did, which is a blessing, which is a reflection of our health. But just like in your real body, when your body doesn't always take with creating life, the same thing happened. So we could expect that only half of those would fertilize, so about 3, and they didn't all make it, right? So you wait about 5 to 6 days for your eggs, for those fertilized eggs to become what we call blastocysts, which is the next step before embryo. So you hold your breath and hope that they become embryos by day 5 or day 6. I had pretty good grade A eggs that were going through the process, but they all disintegrated by day 6. All of them. And when I tell y'all, that was so hard. That was hard. That was hard. It was almost like little people that I would never get to meet, right? It was like the joy of possibly something happening, but that possibility in that point was not going to happen. But again, I am not one to get down for long. I will need to cry. I will need to scream. My husband allowed me to. He was always so sure that it would happen, regardless of how it happened. And I thank God for that. I have a praying mother. I have a supportive sister. I have a friend circle that is gold. So I have those supports in place. So I wasn't able to be down for too long. And I thank God for that. I'm so grateful. But that was hard, because even thinking about that right now is hard. And so 3 days later, my doctor had me in her office. She gave me some time to grieve. She gave me some time to really feel those feels, because they were very interactive with me. They let me know what was going on in the lab the whole time. Never had to call them to beg for answers or anything. They were so forthcoming. She called me. She had me come into the office, me and Sean, and she had already delved up a new protocol. So we already had a new plan, right? We already knew that we would do it a certain way this next time, and we would try to follow through with a certain type of protocol the next time. Like we would try and, a new type of medication protocol. And this time we would do it a certain way. But I had to wait until my next cycle came in order for us to go through that, which was good, because mentally you need that time to decompress. Physically, your body cannot take all that stress. And you just want to make sure you give yourself time. With us, the time was necessary. Something my doctor said before we left was, I think y'all will probably conceive. I don't see why you wouldn't. There's nothing preventing it. This will be a different cycle. I don't see why you don't conceive naturally, which was interesting coming from someone who was on the other end, right? And when she said that, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. Well, y'all, 2 weeks later, I was expecting my menstrual cycle, but that was in March, which our conception date was in March. But then a few weeks later, April had hit, and I think we had gotten all the way to tax day. So what happened was April had hit. I was looking for my period to come, and I kept giving myself excuses like maybe my period's off because I, had this medication in my system, all of that. I was giving it all kinds of stuff. And then, I told the story. Make sure you watch the video of my husband and I talking about how we knew we were pregnant. So I'm kind of redelving into that just a little bit. But to make a long story short, I started feeling sick. I started being tired. I started having waves of nausea. I started having focus fog. I started just all kinds of things. And it felt like my period was coming, but it never did. It just felt like these cramps, but they never came. And so with that process, I'm like, what the heck is going on with me? And even more so, y'all, I have to break it down even further because signs are necessary to understand. My sister had conceived in February of the year before, and she hadn't had her menstrual in about a year. So she had called me randomly like, hey girl, my menstrual came back this week. My period came back this week. And you know, back to business as usual. And what was funny is I was like, well, that's funny because my period hasn't come back at all. My period hasn't come back since after my first period, after we had the process done. And she was like, oh, that's weird. Maybe you should take a test. I still didn't want to take a test. And then YouTube reached out and was like, hey, we're taking you to Nairobi, Kenya. What y'all don't know is my first little niece's name, my only niece's name, is Nairobi. And she was just born in November of the year before. November was the same month that Sean and I got engaged 2 years before she was born. Also, another friend of mine is pregnant, 2 of them, and they had the same due date in my birth month of September. And one of them is exactly 3 months older than me. 3 was our number for our wedding. And they're exactly 3 months older than me. They're 3 months younger than me, and their child will be 3 months older than mine. We conceived in the 3rd month of the year. So I could go on and on and on about all the signs, but needless to say, IVF is a process, and we managed to conceive in the midst of it. Even with a diagnosis of unexplained infertility. I tell y'all, do not be afraid to choose yourself. Make decisions over the time. If you want to freeze your eggs, freeze them. Find out what your job offers with it. Please do. Please do. If you can save your money now because you know you don't want marriage right now, that's okay. But save your money so you can have what you want later on. I knew that I was not ready for a child early on. I had some old cackalack fun times to have for myself because I won't even say I was selfish. I was self-full and I lived life to the fullest. But when I met my husband, I knew I wanted that. So having that possibility was within grasp. So I will urge you, do your research, find out more about harvesting your eggs, about, banking those eggs, about what it would take to be able to do that earlier on. And the best time is to do it is before 35. But I do not see a lot. I will also say this for those of you more interested in natural conception, because for me, I wanted it to happen a certain way. That was just for me, okay? That's not for everyone. A lot of women remain and take care of themselves. You can't guarantee anything, but all of my friends, we are the same age, baby, and we are just now having kids, most of us, within the past 4 to 5 years. Most of us. Some of us have had them earlier. Some of them had them a little bit earlier, but most of us have had them within these same 4 to 5 years. So it's possible. I think one of them with IVF, or 2 of them with IVF, the rest have all been natural conceptions and multiples, okay? So I will say, make sure you make the wise decision for yourself. IVF might not be the road you take, but don't be afraid to investigate. Harvesting your eggs, freezing your eggs. I said harvesting, but freezing your eggs may be the best way to have some insurance. It's still not a guarantee, but it's some insurance. And we do need to normalize that if we want things to happen later on, we need to have some insurances for ourselves and with the right people. You also don't want to run into rushing yourself with the wrong people because you're afraid that you won't conceive later on. Thank God for God's grace in my life. in being found by my husband and us finding one another and having the same goals in life. This will be both of our first child. But the way that it happened is quite unconventional. And I don't want people to miss out on their blessing and on their testimony for what they want. This ain't for everybody, but I will say I'm going to support you in making those decisions and figuring out more. I'm also going to link some resources down below so that y'all can learn more about IVF, unexplained infertility, infertility reasons, fertility, and the things that you can do to help yourself. In the next video, I plan to talk more about how I feel like I increased my chances of natural conception, even at an older age. I just wanted to get through talking about the scientific portions because there were so many other things that I did, keeping myself healthy, exercising, eating well, trying to keep my stress levels low, all of that. And I think it's important for me to get through that as well. So hopefully y'all have benefited from this video and have learned a lot. And honestly, if you know someone that is going through something similar, I want you to share this with them. And ladies and gentlemen, let's normalize the discussions of fertility and realize that this is not just a woman problem. This is not just a woman issue. So a lot of you little manosphere people that don't know nothing about science, just know about running your mouth. Something you should know is sperm will crack, okay? Sperm ain't always good, okay? So let's be real. Some men can have babies longer, but that does not mean the quality of their sperm cannot cause issues within the children they conceive. Something to know and to keep your eye out for and read the research on instead of running your mouth, okay? But otherwise, y'all, hopefully you've learned a lot from me and hopefully I'll get a lot of questions from y'all down below. Thank you so much for listening to this. This was so therapeutic. I feel like it was a story I was holding on to, other than my close friends, of course. They all knew what I was going through, thank God. But I feel like it was something I was holding on to, and I have been able to share that with you. So let me know if that's been helpful for you. Make sure that you comment, share this video with someone who can use it, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Beautiful brown baby doll. Peace.